It may be over 100 years since her first novel was published, but Agatha Christie is still the queen of the murder mystery. And this weekend, yet another of her books hits the big screen in the star-studded A Haunting in Venice. Oh, spooky, spooky. Agatha Christie's great-grandson, James Pritchard, who is also a producer on the movie, joins me now from Greenway House. That's his great-grandmother's much-loved holiday home. So good to see you. I'll tell you what, that looks terrifying.
It is, yes, it's definitely on the scary end. I think audiences will be surprised by how different it is in tone. I mean, it does lean into horror, but it is essentially a murder mystery, and I think people will see it and still have what I would call a traditional Agatha Christie experience. But yes, there are definitely jump-out-of-your-seat moments.
It's incredible, isn't it? She's done such a service to obviously to books and to get people reading. You know, I dip in and out of her books a lot. I mean, she is extraordinary as far as that goes. But also to TV and movies. Where would they be without Agatha?
Well, she had this extraordinary gift for storytelling. She called her books stories, and that is really the reason why we're still enjoying them today, was she had this genius for plot. And the thing about great stories, great plots, is they last the test of time, and they also work across media, they work across borders and boundaries. So not only are we, you know, still reading her books, we're watching her plays, we're watching TV, we're watching films, but we're doing that all over the world in sort of up to 100 languages. It's a very extraordinary achievement for a woman who was born today in 1890 in Torquay, about 5 miles away from where I am.
Gosh, it's extraordinary, isn't it? I mean, she was writing at a certain time. I mean, she wrote for decades, but obviously it was a different time. And I know that there's some calls, and there, you know, some people are saying they should be re-edited. How do you feel about that? Because sometimes I think, well, it's of its time, and we should know what people are thinking and feeling at those times. But how do you feel as someone who's so directly involved?
Well, I mean, the interesting that you sort of mentioned there, that she wrote over decades. I mean, actually, you know, I mean, her first book was published in 1920, so well over 100 years ago. But actually, during her lifetime, she, in consultation with her editors, actually changed some of the wording in some of her books because the meaning of those words had changed during that period. So we, you know, I run Agatha Christie Limited, which is the company that she set up to manage her works after her death, and we have just carried on that piece of work. And we are very clear that what we're not doing is rewriting her books. We're not changing the meaning or the feel of them in any way. But every now and then, when we come up with a new edition, we change a word here or there because the meaning has changed. And in our view, it would diminish the reading experience. And what we want is people to be able to enjoy her books as they did, you know, when they were written, now and forever. And that's something we try and work with our publishers to achieve. Well,
that makes perfect sense, doesn't it? You're there at a place that she loved. She loved it. Did she write there in her holiday home? Is that where she would have written some of her books?
Well, there's a sort of tradition here that I mean, this was her holiday home, and she didn't write here. But actually, I know she did, because there's a story of a friend of my grandmother's who came to stay for a week at some point. And she told my great-grandmother that she cheated, and she used to read the end of the book before she read the beginning. But then my great-grandmother said, well, you won't be able to do this and this time. And every day after dinner, she would read what she'd written that day. So she didn't normally write here, but she didn't not write here either.
She was a remarkable woman. She had this real forensic mind, and so interesting that she thought of so many different ways to murder people. It's quite extraordinary, isn't it?
It's quite scary. I mean, it's quite scary that I mean, she was. I mean, you know, my father was her only grandchild and was very close, and he would say that, you know, she was the greatest listener he ever met, and she was a very kind, gentle, shy woman. But somewhere in that mind, there was an awful lot of evil, and I don't quite know where it came from.
Well, I'm glad it came from somewhere because the legacy is quite extraordinary. You're quite rightly protective of that. And I do really like Kenneth Branagh's recreation of Poirot. He's a slightly different Poirot. The moustaches are astonishing. But thank you so much for talking to us today in A Haunting in Venice. Cinemas from today, actually, isn't it? It's out today.
It is. It's out today, and I hope people will enjoy it. I think they'll be surprised by the tone, but essentially, it feels like an Agatha Christie, and that is what that's what we're all here for.
Exactly, James. Thank you so much. Great to talk to you this morning. Thank you.